To the Explainer. Today, we are diving into a perspective that, honestly, challenges a lot of what we think we know about womanhood. We're going to talk about everything from the societal pressure to have kids, all the way to this wild idea that our children's behavior is actually a mirror of our own hidden feelings. Let's get right into it.
So, the source material kicks things off with this really powerful quote from Sonia Johnson, and right away it just lays out the core theme, the idea that a woman's control of her own body is the absolute foundation of her freedom. Seriously, this thought is the launchpad for everything that comes next.
All right, first up, the source material goes head-to-head with a really deeply ingrained belief in our society. You know the one. The idea that a woman's ultimate fulfillment is exclusively tied to having children.
And the argument here is that this isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's actually a form of societal control. According to the author, this constant pressure to have babies can end up limiting women's ambitions, kind of boxing them into this one single role when, their true purpose might be somewhere else entirely.
But what about that maternal instinct, right? Well, this perspective suggests you can channel that instinct in so many other powerful ways that go way beyond biology. You could adopt children, mentor other women, rescue animals, or just dedicate yourself to making the world a better place. It's a much broader, more inclusive way of thinking about what mothering really means.
So, this whole questioning of society's rules leads us directly to a pretty critical look at the modern fertility industry, which, well, the author views with some deep skepticism.
And the way this is framed is really deliberate. The author presents the fertility business not just as some medical service, but as this massive commercial machine that is actively selling the idea of pregnancy to women, sometimes using some pretty high-pressure tactics. And just to put that into perspective, the source values this as a $2 billion industry. Okay, so we're not talking about some small niche medical field here. That kind of money creates an incredible amount of momentum and marketing pressure, and that directly impacts the choices women are facing.
So the author lays out some really serious warnings. Things like an aggressive, hard sell from clinics, a pretty concerning lack of regulation, and treatments that are often still experimental. She argues that this combination can create a situation that's not just financially devastating, but can be physically dangerous too.
And get this critical view even extends to widely accepted procedures like IVF. It's described not as a medical miracle, but as a social fad. The underlying idea here seems to be that if the body is naturally resisting pregnancy, there might just be a good reason for it, and maybe forcing the issue isn't the healthiest path forward.
The author then paints this really stark contrast between two approaches. On one side, you have what are called civilized answers, things like chemicals and surgery. And on the other, nature's answers, like herbs, and, this is pretty radical, the idea that women could one day achieve mental control over their own fertility, a fascinating and very forward-thinking concept.
Okay, so now the focus shifts a little bit. We're moving from the decision to have children to the huge responsibility of actually raising them, with a special focus on the challenges and maybe the opportunities that single mothers face.
This is put forward as the one essential question every woman should ask herself before she becomes a parent. And the author argues that, given the high rate of divorce, this isn't a pessimistic question at all. It's a deeply realistic and responsible one.
Now, for those of you who are parents, the core advice here is to just let go of that immense pressure to be perfect. The author really stresses that trying to be a superwoman is just a recipe for burnout. The goal isn't perfection, it's love and, just as important, self-acceptance.
And this, right here, is really the heart of the author's whole parenting philosophy. It's not about what you buy for your kids or which classes you sign them up for. The greatest gift you can give them, according to this view, is your own self-esteem, because that's the model they're ultimately going to follow.
The author then offers this fascinatingly simple two-step guide for mothers who are raising sons, and it really just boils down to this. First, define the qualities you truly want in a partner. And second, consciously raise your son to embody those exact same qualities. It's such a powerful call for really intentional parenting.
Now, a crucial piece of this puzzle is to avoid speaking negatively about your child's father. The warning here is that when you do that, you're basically teaching your children that relationships are a battlefield, and that could potentially set them up to repeat that same toxic pattern later in their own lives.
And finally, we get to what might be the most profound idea in this entire source, the concept of parenting as mirror work. This is the idea that our kids' behavior is often a direct reflection of our own unresolved issues.
See, the whole foundation for this idea is that no child is born with these negative traits. They are learned. And that puts this immense importance on the environment and the examples that parents provide, whether they're doing it consciously or, unconsciously.
This is where it gets really deep. The suggestion is that kids are so perceptive that they'll often act out the very emotions their parents are trying to suppress. So, a child's tantrum might actually be the parent's unexpressed anger. They literally become messengers for all the unspoken tension in the family.
And this whole dynamic, it's not a one-time thing, right? It actually unfolds over a kid's entire life. It might start with the so-called terrible twos, then escalate during those rebellious teenage years, and it's often met with the same reaction from parents, blaming the child instead of looking at what's really going on inside the family.
So, the next time your child's behavior is really challenging or frustrating, the author urges parents to just pause. Instead of reacting with anger, just step back and ask yourself this simple but powerful question. What is my child's behavior trying to teach me about myself?
And that brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this whole perspective. It's a provocative and deeply personal idea that true, lasting change in our children often begins not with them, but with our own willingness to look inward and to heal ourselves. So what do you think that mirror is trying to show you?